Hey everybody, welcome to Always Good News. My name is Mark Miller. Really glad that you've taken some time to join us. This is our 20th episode. I can hardly believe it, but it's been awesome. And hey, if you missed any of the previous episodes and you want to check those out, they're all available on our IGTV or also on the Billy Graham Canada YouTube channel. You can check them out there. We have so many amazing guests. We've had Sissy Graham Lynch, Nathan Finocchio, Pastor Matt Tapley. We've had The Color, Andy Moore, so many great guests. And tonight we're going to be joined by another awesome guest. So welcome everybody as you're joining. Dave, Hilda, good to see you. Good to see everybody tonight. Make sure you do us a favor and just write in the comment box there. Let us know where you're watching from. We always enjoy that. And also, as we get into our conversation tonight, it's so much better when you're a part of it. So jump in with a comment or hit us up with a question in the question box there. And we'd love to engage and maybe answer some of those questions or just engage with you. So let us know where you're watching from. That's always awesome to hear that. And hey, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you click on the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And tonight we're going to be joined by Pastor Jonathan Lambert. Jonathan and his wife Natasha are the lead pastors of Experience Church in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And he also serves as the executive director of ARC Canada. And so we're going to be joined in the conversation. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. Pastor Jonathan Lambert.
Hey, how are you, man?
Good, man. Welcome to Always Good News. Good to see you. Good to have you.
So glad to be here. Honored. Excited to chat for a bit.
Yes, man. This is fantastic. And we are going to chat about all things Experience Church and your journey and all that good stuff. But before we do, we're going to throw it out there for some this or that. You ready?
Ooh, come on. I'm ready.
All right, man. This first one might just set the pace here. Calgary Flames, Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, Leafs for sure. Easy.
No question.
Like Leafs for sure. But Flames are right there. You got to support the hometown team. But if they're playing each other, I'm going Leafs every time.
And are you wearing the jersey? Are you doing it all?
Oh, yeah. No, pre-COVID, when the Leafs are in town, I got my Leafs jersey on. I'm at the game. But every other time I got a Flames jersey, I'm there supporting the Flames.
I knew the answer to that. I just had to throw it out there and see if you would stay true to the blue and white. So
man, I'll never shift.
Love it. Waffles, pancakes.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Pancakes.
You could have said both. A lot of respect there if you had said both.
No, you know what? That's good to know for the next question, just in case.
Okay. Deodorant, antiperspirant.
Deodorant for sure. Antiperspirant's got aluminum. I'm not going to do that.
Right-handed, left-handed.
Right.
Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve.
Christmas Eve.
All right. Caramel corn or popcorn?
Not really either, but like popcorn if I had to.
All right. So what's your snack of choice? Watching a movie, what's a snack?
Cookies for sure.
Cookies. All right.
Cookies.
Expect some cookies. Okay.
Yeah.
Last
or just handfuls of chocolate chips are fine too.
Okay. Fair enough. Last one. Bible app or the old school hard copy Bible?
It depends on the scenario, because when I'm praying, I always like to have my Bible in my hand.
Yeah.
But when I'm like studying for a message and stuff, it's all digital. Yeah.
And you preach with digital or hard copy? How's that work?
I preach with digital, but I always bring my paper copy onto the stage with me, and sometimes I even forget to open it, but most times I open it somewhere and kind of glance at it as if I'm reading from it, just to give the appearance.
Secrets out, man. Secrets out.
Yeah, just trying to encourage people to have a hardcore Bible.
Yeah, I love it. And there's nothing like it. Man, so good to have you. And we're going to jump in, like I said, to a lot of different stuff. But let's go back, because a lot of people that might know you or hear you speak, or Pastor Jonathan and that whole thing. But let's take it way back. Tell us about your journey of faith. Did you grow up in a Christian home? Did you come to faith later in life? Tell us a little bit about Jonathan Lambert and the journey of faith that you've been on.
Yeah, man, that's a massive question. Yeah, I grew up in a Christian home, but it was like freshly Christian. So my parents weren't following Jesus, and then right just before I was born, right around that time, they started going to church, and so that was, in hindsight, now I understand a lot about even our home dynamic, because my
Hmm.
parents were new to it, but they were all in. Like they were really committed to it right from the beginning, really involved in church. Um, and so that was a blessing. And I think um, I, I can't even pretend that there was a whole bunch of like crazy challenges with that. I mean, it's a blessing to grow up in a Christian home. There's no question.
Yeah,
Um, but there's always still a point where your faith has to become your faith and not your parents' faith. And
100%.
I think that was something my parents gave me the freedom to sort of explore, and we had a great youth ministry and things like that. So um, one of the things I really appreciate, my parents allowed me to be very involved in sports and things outside of church as well. So it's not as if we had like tunnel vision and it was just church. It was
Yeah.
pretty balanced. And so it was man, it was like a Western Ontario district of the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada youth convention in 1995, which is crazy. It's so long
Wow.
ago. But that
Yeah.
that was like, I remember that May long weekend as a definitive moment in
Yeah.
my life, in my Christian walk. And that's when it shifted from being a real, like, an intellectual pursuit where you've got questions, you're trying to figure stuff out, and much of what you do is because you've just been told to do it, to being something that became very tangible and relational for me. So and then from then on, obviously, I think I was 16, so there's ups and downs, and there's lots of mistakes, but those don't stop. I still make lots of mistakes. So
Yeah.
you just learn
Absolutely.
how to, you kind of learn on the journey how to lean into grace, and
Yeah.
and keep going, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
Christian home, great church, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's it. That's the condensed version of way back.
Yeah, no, I love it. And similar story for me. My parents came to faith way later in life, and then I was born into that Christian home as well. And similar story as well. Not just tunnel vision on the church, but also living this faith out in sports and school, public school, and all that stuff. So
Right.
that's awesome. Now, I think it was I was thinking about it today. I think it was in 2007 I first met you. We did like a tour in Newfoundland. Do you
We
remember
did.
this with
Yeah, you know
Revolution?
what, man, we're like packing up some stuff in our house right now, and I found a DVD from a church in, I think it was like maybe Grand Falls, Windsor, or Gander or something, and it's like a really young Jonathan and
Yeah.
the youth band from our church.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and man, it seems like a lifetime ago for sure, and lots has happened since then. But what I really want to talk about is 2012.
Yep.
You planted the church that you lead now with your wife, Natasha, Experience Church, and I heard something about a grocery store lineup in northern Alberta is when this started to happen. Is that true? Tell me about how this church
uh,
planted the journey.
Yeah, no, definitely. There is a grocery store in the story. We had been married and living in Vancouver. We're trying to figure life out, just where God wanted us, things like that. Ended up in Fort McMurray. My wife's parents lived there, and no joke, we put all of our stuff in storage in Vancouver. I packed a suitcase like I legitimately thought we were going to be there for a week or two, because I just was like, we're awesome. Like we're gonna go somewhere amazing, and it took me weeks to unpack my suitcase,
Wow.
and so we ended up in Fort Mac. Absolutely loved it, but it was a first time in years, at least, and first time in our married life, because when we got married, I was already working at Christian Life Assembly in Vancouver and all that stuff. So it was the first time in our married life where we had to be Christians without being pastors, and that was amazing. Like
Yeah.
that was probably the most formative season of my life, the
Hmm.
most challenging season of my life, where God was really pushing on. Like it was just the first time in a long time when I didn't have to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Um, there, like really even going back to my childhood, like here's my wife and I, we could do whatever we wanted,
Yeah.
and we were in a spot where we knew very few people, expectations were very low, and so God really started to speak to me there, because I think at first I was a little bit complacent with everything, and There was really two moments that kind of led to Experience Church. One was at a Flames Leaf game, and kind of through that season, drove down, was at the hockey game, and the national anthem was playing, and I'm looking around, and like my eyes are welling up with tears, because up until that point we had actually been considering moving to the States. We were talking to a church there, really thinking like that'll be awesome, we'll do that. But I started to cry during the national anthem at a hockey game. And there's something about, like, you're looking at 18, 19,000 people,
Yeah.
and they're singing God Keep Our Land, but they have no idea
Right.
what that means. There's no context. Most of them have no roots in their faith. It's just the lyrics to a song. And I was like, man, God, what would it be like if, like, stadiums in Canada were packed on the regular with people actually worshiping and intentional about it? That was a key moment. Then the other one was the lineup at the grocery store, where again, it was just on this journey of like, what does it look like to live out your faith? And God kept dropping 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 9, that the Lord's not slow in keeping his promises, as some understand slowness, but he's patient, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come into a relationship with him. And I just remember we were sitting in the line. I was there with one of my kids, and just chatting with the lady at the counter, and which is so funny that's like a luxury that we had in 2012 that we don't really have today. But the Lord was just like, hey, this woman right here isn't everyone. Like, when it says that I want everyone to be drawn into relationship with my son, this isn't everyone. You can't keep walking past people that are everyone's to me. And that shifted. That was a big moment. And there's, of course, a lot of other moments in the journey, but the idea of not only being passionate about everybody, that was new for me. I'd never lived like that before, and I don't live like that every day. I try. I pray every day that would be real in my life, that I wouldn't just walk past people, but that I don't think as Christians we don't have the right to choose who does and doesn't deserve grace, which practically lived out means we don't have the right, I don't feel, to choose who we will invite and won't invite to church. We don't have the right to choose who we will and won't talk to about Jesus. Like, if it's real, then to not share it is cruel. It's dark if it's real. And so that was the shift. And so so EC really came from that place where, one, I want to live that way, and I do my best to live that way, and I'm certainly not perfect at it, and I got to work on all sorts of issues, but that's an underlining current. And then the other thing is, we wanted just to try and create a space where anybody could invite anybody, and it wasn't going to be weird, not seeker sensitive. I mean, we go hard at our church. We preach from the Bible. We worship hard. Like, we're not trying to water down the truth, because people can see through that. That's not working anymore. They need, like, hard truth. People are looking for, the reason we see, like, culture so divided is because people are looking for something to grab onto, and the only options they're seeing right now are like extreme right, extreme left, extremes.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, well, what if we just offered extreme truth, but did it in a way that didn't weird people out? So I don't want somebody to invite their neighbor to EC and then have to spend all afternoon explaining to their neighbor why they're not in a cult. Like, that's not helpful. So that was part of it. It's like, this is the way I want to live, but we also want to create an environment where people can totally, we say all the time, trust us with your non-Christian. Don't come if you're not going to trust us with your non-Christian friends, family, and connections. Because if you're not, then go somewhere else and just roll in and roll out. But if you're going to be here, trust us with people who don't know Jesus and be a part of helping them discover him. So those are some of the formative moments and things that really pushed us. And our church is far from perfect, and the lead pastors are far from perfect. And but that is at the undercurrent. We're trying to drive that all the time, and doing our best to create that space.
I love it. And I love your honesty, man. I love the fact that you're saying this is what I'm trying to achieve. And it actually reminds me of a statement I heard once that just, man, it pierced me. It said, you've never looked in the face of somebody that God doesn't love.
Well, yeah, right. Come on.
Right. And that's what propels us. That's what motivates us to do what we do. Now, let's talk 2020. Nobody saw this coming. It's been a year like none other. But what's God doing in Experience Church, man? Like, tell me about how's God moving? Because I know he's doing stuff.
It's been phenomenal, to be honest with you. I think one of the things that's challenged me in this season, and it comes out of the story of Lazarus, where Martha comes out to Jesus and she's frustrated that he didn't, they asked Jesus to come and heal. And Martha didn't even know that she could have asked for a resurrection. She didn't know that she could have asked for that. And yet that's what Jesus delivered. And I think that's what one of the things God is teaching me during this season, that you don't even know what to ask for. It's going to be that great. And so, yes, it's been unpredictable. Yes, nobody saw it coming. Yes, it's been terribly challenging for so many people, so many families, so many. It's just the brokenness, all of it. It's massive. It's heartbreaking to see what so many people are walking through, even in our community. The amount of even suicides connected directly to our church has been, it's devastating. But we're seeing real time what it looks like for God to do something beautiful out of something so broken. And so for our church, that's meant a lot of really amazing individual stories, and some really great corporate ones too. We had been on the verge of being homeless several times because we're a new church, or we're not new anymore, but we're still meeting in portable venues. And there's so many of my friends are in that situation. And that was our reality for 7.5 years. But then the week that the gathering restrictions clamped down here and pretty well nationwide, we got occupancy to a building that we had purchased and renovated. And so just like God's timing and all of it was unbelievable. So that, of course, is like a major miracle. And now it was frustrating to not be able to have anybody in that building.
Yeah, here's the occupancy permit, but you can't occupy it.
Yeah, so that was kind of ironic, but it gave us a home base. We were able to have some like pastors and other leaders and to pray and have community. We were able to have a home base for recording services, which doesn't seem like much, but it was really monumental to us. And I felt like it was a real prophetic statement, I felt, to our city, to our church family, that, hey, we're here. Yeah, the world is crazy. We're not going anywhere. We were able to open up pretty early. So Alberta has just kind of pushed the envelope really compared to the entire country. And so at the end of June, we were able to start opening up with socially distanced, sanitized, all the different things, services. And that, honestly, it's been phenomenal. Every week we have people give their lives to Jesus in person. And that's a hand raised. We get their information and we're able to follow up. And the fact that people are, and people have been getting saved online too. Obviously, we've continued to do that, and that's been an amazing shift. Like, just a blessing to be forced into that reality and to be able to move from there. But the fact that every week, and I know there's other people seeing similar things, that every week somebody who doesn't know Jesus makes the conscious decision on a Wednesday to register for an experienced church service, and then show up on the weekend. It's a lot of work to come to church right now. That's not easy. And so that's just like, that blows me away, man. Like that's such a miracle that we get to be a part of that. And so God's doing a lot of he's doing a lot of amazing things in our church right now. And again, I could go through, there's been so many crazy stories of jobs and healing and man, we've just had, there's been so many things, but it's beautiful to see, not just at EC, but across the country, like everybody's creativity and their expressions. So whether they're open or not, or everyone, the church is never closed. I get it. But whether we're gathering or not, it's amazing to see the expressions and the creativity. It's incredible to watch, people serving their cities. I think that's been a beautiful thing. And that's been something that our church has tried to really ramp up as well. Like, hey, let's love the city. And I think that's a big push in the pandemic. Like, does your city miss you when your doors aren't open? And if they don't, that's a problem. And so we're just trying to make ourselves known and present in the city. So that's been really cool too. So watching people pivot, respond to needs, do their best to love Calgary. So
it's so good. And that's really, honestly, that's all we wanted to do with Always Good News, is just get some of these stories out there, because as you know, media ain't telling these stories. The fear that they're pushing and the sky is falling, and yet we're just doing our little bit to get out there and say, no, actually God's on the move. Things are happening. The church is alive and well in Canada.
Yeah.
And we want to share those stories. I want to talk about, just for a couple more minutes, the demographic of your church is pretty young. I mean, probably what, in the 20s to 40s? Would that be like the bulk of your congregation? Would that be accurate?
Yeah, that'd be the bulk, like a lot of young families.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20s to 40s. Yeah.
So with that said, tell me about, talk to me about how you lead your church in a culture that we're living in where, the popular take isn't really the biblical take on these cultural issues. And you made a really good point earlier when you said, we're not just putting stuff out, like we're going hard after truth, and that's what people are looking for. And I think, we've heard the cliches. You and I, we grew up in the church. We heard the cliches our whole life that the light shines brightest when it's darkest out. But we're seeing that, like this year, man. We're seeing the darkness of the time that we're living, the polarizing, far left, far right, cancel culture, everybody hating, everybody, all that madness. Talk to me about how you stay true to the gospel? Like, what are some of the things that you as a leader in your church, like what are the things that are not going to be messed with? How do you stay true to that gospel and offer that hope to the city of Calgary?
Right. Well, I think, there's a few things. Quite simply, I think the more divided culture gets, the more unified the church has to be. And so one of our thoughts kind of through pandemic season and things of, for being realist, I like to think I'm not a pessimist. I try to convince myself that I'm a realist. I'm certainly not an optimist most of the time, unless I'm cheering for the Leafs. I'm always optimistic about their chances.
You have to be a Leafs fan. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
Said the Habs fan.
Who's your team? Yeah. Oh, Habs. Well, okay. So yeah, you're not much better. But yeah, with the world so fractured, I think one of the worst possible things is if the church just looks fractured with it. And so as 2020 has progressed, things have gotten crazier. It was a pandemic that people thought might be over by Easter when we flattened the curve. Turns out flattening the curve wasn't the goal, and we're still here. But then you add racial tension and all of the complexities that come with just 2020. It's wild. And we were just feeling like, hey, I don't believe that we're supposed to give all of our different personal perspective answers on every cultural issue and every question that's being asked and everything that's dividing people. But what we should do is try and rally people around a couple of things that maybe we can all agree, at least in some way, makes sense. At least let's get the Christians to unify on something, and that should be a bit of a testimony. And so we've worked really hard at prayer. Even through September, we actually we did 42 straight days of prayer. We had 6 a.m. prayer services Monday to Friday every day. And we've never done that in our church before. We just decided coming out of that we couldn't stop. So we've been rolling like 6 a.m. prayer services 3 days a week. And that's actually something that's, hey, I felt like through the early stages of the pandemic, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things and none of it was prayer. And I was one of them. I was Googling, I was looking things up. I was, projecting my opinion. I was thinking all these things but prayer had taken a bit of a back seat. And so it's like, man, you know what? Sure, we can protest, but if we're not praying, we shouldn't protest. We can post, but if we're not praying, we shouldn't post. We can engage in conversations and arguments and try and offer all of our solutions. But if we're not praying, then none of those things are going to be grounded properly. So we've really tried to rally around prayer. That's been a big focus for our church. And it's been amazing. God's been doing incredible things and speaking to people and really revealing his heart. So that's been huge. Worship has been, and I know these sound really like typical, but we had to come back to the basics. So it's like, who's Jesus? How do we pray? And how and why do we worship? We've really just tried to focus on those things. And I think that's helped us a lot. Like you mentioned earlier, like trying to hold a hard line on truth has been helpful. I'm convinced that there's a closing window on the church's ability to just speak biblical truth. 100%. And so we have to get used to preaching it now while the window is still open even a little bit. And so if we're not preaching truth now, we're not going to preach it when it grows more difficult to do that. And so we've just been trying to, hey, what does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? And I know every pastor is probably doing that, but that's been where we've been at. I feel like people are rallying around it. I think people, like I was saying, are hungry for truth. So I'm convinced that's why we have people showing up from totally unchurched backgrounds and, you know, finding Christ and starting to follow Jesus in services, because it's true.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're hearing a lot of lies. They're hearing, you know, the media right now tells us how to feel before they even tell us the news story.
Yeah.
They're
100%.
almost leading with, this is the emotional response you should have. And so
Yeah.
I just think we have to shut that down and say, hey, no, we're supposed to have sound minds. We're supposed to think straight.
Right.
We're
Right.
supposed to understand the times. We can't duck our heads in the sand and pretend that this isn't happening. We have to be real about what's going on. But then what's our response to that? 1 Timothy chapter 2, Paul says, you know, pray first,
Yeah.
pray every way you know how, and pray for
Right.
everybody you know. It's
Right.
like, so
Right.
we've just been trying to, what are the few things that we can do without screwing everything up, you know?
Yeah.
So less opinion, more petition
Yeah.
of God, petition of God,
Yeah. Yeah. Not
not
signing your name
petition.
on the
And
line. Gotcha.
yeah, no,
Well,
I mean,
you know,
I do that too. I sign all the petitions, but
it's like, you know, it's like, even though like trends, right? Like think back when I was a teenager, like tie-dye, and all of a sudden it's coming back. In the church, it's like you start reading about past revivals, and it is like, you know, early morning prayer. I mean, I remember as a high school kid coming with my mom to 6 a.m. prayer at our church, you know, on
right.
Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you know, midweek, you know, all these
Oh man,
old school things that we kind of for a while maybe thought were outdated or past, and people don't have a passion or
absolutely.
interest in that. And now it's like, no, we're hungry for truth, and that's what we need. We're going to get ready to wrap up. Let me just ask you this one last thing. Always love to ask this because, of course, with the internet, you never know who's going to watch this. It's going to be on
Right.
IGTV right away. It's going to be on YouTube. I want you to just talk to people that are Jesus followers. Just give them some encouragement. But I also want you to say something to somebody that somehow came across this video. They're searching. Maybe they're in a hopeless place. Maybe they need encouragement. What would you say to those two
Well,
audiences?
well, first, to Jesus followers, I would say read Ephesians chapter 6, and pray. I would say, like, stand firm. Know what that is, and part of standing firm is that you have to actually dig in and know what you believe,
Right.
and get rooted in your convictions. And this is not 2020 is, I think it's a sifting for Christians. You can't be a nominal, casual Christian in 2020. You just can't. Like, your faith is too important right now. I don't know how people are making it if they don't have faith in a God who actually is supreme and over all of the crazy that we're seeing.
Yeah.
And so that'd be my thought to Christians, is like, just get all the way in. Don't mess around with it now. Like, let's go for it. Pray, commit to a local church, even if it's online.
Very
Serve
good.
people. Like, just get involved. This is not the time to be a little bit in and a little bit out. You can't be a casual Christian right now. We have to go for it. Our world, our country, needs us to actually step up and own this a little bit. We
Yeah.
have to look different. We have to love different. We have to stand for something that matters. So I think that'd be my encouragement to the Christians. My encouragement to anybody who's watching, who's not following Jesus right now. Really glad that you stuck with us to this point in the conversation, number one. And you know, number two, I would say, hey, like, yeah, the world is nuts right now, but there is a God who is over everything that's happening in the world. He is sovereign, and he is ultimately in control. So if you're struggling, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you can't do it, and the truth is you can't. And so don't, like, it's normal to feel that way when you don't have your hope anchored in something that's bigger than the circumstances we're facing. And Jesus is that place where you can anchor your hope. And so I'd encourage you just to give him a shot. And from my own life experience, from the people I do life with, the people we have the opportunity to serve at our church, I can tell you right now that Jesus is, he makes a difference. I don't know how else to say it other than that. And
Yeah.
happy for you to reach out to our church. We'd love to talk to you. Reach out to Mark and Billy Graham Canada. But if you're feeling alone and overwhelmed, it doesn't have to continue to be that way. You can have inner peace even when you're dealing with outer chaos. So
Yeah, man, it's super encouraging. Thanks for that. And this is what this is all about, is just hearing how God's at work. And I love hearing new churches, your church thriving, Jonathan. You know, with everything that's happening right now for everybody that's watching, you know, I've been hanging on to what Hebrews 12 says, that we're receiving that kingdom that cannot be shaken.
right, come on.
And so be grateful for that, and let your worship be acceptable with reverence and awe of God. He's a consuming fire. I just thought, man, like, everything's shaking, the kingdom of God cannot be. And
Right.
he's building his church. And I loved hearing about Experience Church and everything. So thanks for sharing with us tonight, man. It's been awesome. How can people connect with you online or otherwise, websites, socials?
Yeah, I mean, EC Jonathan L is the Instagram, experiencechurch.ca is the website. We're streaming services every weekend. If you're in Calgary, you can come live. We'll squeeze you in somewhere. Yeah, would love to connect, and definitely, yeah, we're here.
Awesome. So good to see you tonight. Great to hear from you. And
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah,
It's
take
been
care.
awesome, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, it's been
See
really
ya.
good. Thanks. Take care.